Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The room was dimly lit, the soft glow from the bedside lamp casting golden streaks across the floor. I felt a mix of mischief and curiosity as I leaned closer, my fingers brushing lightly against the edge of the couch where he was sitting. The air seemed to thicken, every small movement suddenly magnified. I laughed softly, trying to sound casual, and then, almost on a whim, I slid onto his lap. Just a joke, I told myself. His body tensed for the briefest moment, and I felt the subtle shift of his weight beneath me. Our eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world around us blurred. His gaze was intense, unreadable, and a small thrill shot through me as if electricity had passed between us. I caught the way his hand hovered near mine, frozen in hesitation, and I didn't move away. Instead, I shifted slightly, letting my body press closer, pretending I hadn't noticed his reaction. The room was quiet except for our breaths, rapid and shallow. My pulse raced in my ears, and I could feel a warmth spreading that wasn't just from proximity. The scent of him, faintly woody, slightly spicy, made my stomach flutter in a way that was equal parts nervousness and anticipation. Every brush of our skin, every accidental touch, felt deliberate, charged. I tilted my head, offering a teasing smile, and he responded with a subtle curve of his lips, but his eyes said so much more. There was a tension between us that neither of us wanted to break, a quiet understanding that something unspoken was happening. My heart beat faster, and I knew he could feel it too. The air was thick with possibility, and every second felt like a countdown. Then, without a word, he shifted slightly, and I felt a deliberate press of his hand against the small of my back. My breath caught, and I realized neither of us was planning to move away. A charged silence settled between us, both daring the other to break it first. I smiled inwardly, knowing this playful joke had just turned into something far more thrilling. And in that suspended moment, I wondered, what happens next? The memory of that first night on his lap lingered, like a secret thread connecting us in ways neither of us dared speak aloud. On the surface, everything seemed light-hearted between us, playful teasing, shared laughter, casual touches, but underneath, a storm of unspoken emotions had been quietly brewing. I remembered the way he avoided talking about the future, how his hands sometimes lingered longer than necessary, yet he would pull away the moment I tried to meet his gaze. And me, I had built walls too, a protective shield of jokes and teasing to mask the longing I felt whenever he was near. We were like magnets, drawn together yet hesitating, both afraid of what might happen if we let go. There were nights I would catch him staring, a faint tension around his jaw, as if he was fighting a battle I couldn't see. And I, feigning indifference, pretending that his glances didn't make my heart skip a beat, felt a strange mix of exhilaration and frustration. I wanted to bridge the gap between us, to give in to the heat of the moment, but the words never came. The tension built silently, layer by layer, like a storm waiting for the first spark. Small moments carried the weight of everything we refused to say. The brush of his hand against mine as we reached for the same mug, the way our shoulders touched accidentally yet intentionally on a narrow stairway, the quiet pauses in conversation when our eyes met, each of these gestures felt loaded with meaning. There was a dangerous intimacy in these fleeting touches, a delicious ache that left me restless long after he had gone. And yet, beneath all of this, there were cracks in our relationship, subtle but undeniable. Moments of misunderstanding, unspoken jealousy, and silent resentment simmered just below the surface. We wanted each other, yes, but pride and fear kept us at arm's length. Every playful laugh carried an edge, every teasing comment a hint of vulnerability we weren't ready to reveal. It was a delicate dance, one misstep, and the balance could collapse entirely. Still, the attraction was impossible to deny. Even in our most fragile, flawed moments, there was something magnetic, undeniable, that pulled us together. And when we were alone, when the world fell away and only the quiet hum of our presence remained, that tension flared, unpredictable, thrilling, impossible to ignore. Every second spent together felt like a choice between holding back and letting go, and neither of us was ready to make the first move. As I sat there, recalling the night on his lap, I realized the game we played had already begun, and we were both dangerously close to losing control. The question hung in the air: how far could we push this connection before it broke through all barriers? The room smelled faintly of his cologne, mixed with the lingering warmth of the late afternoon sun slipping through the curtains. I sat across from him, pretending to scroll on my phone, but my eyes kept darting toward him, catching glimpses of attention he couldn't, or wouldn't, hide. He laughed at something on TV, but there was a spark in his glance, the kind that made my pulse flutter like a secret drumbeat. Then she appeared in our conversation, an old friend, a woman from work he mentioned casually last week. I felt it immediately, a twinge of something sharp, almost unbearable. Jealousy. My stomach twisted, and I realized how much I wanted to be the one he noticed, the one who made his pulse quicken. He leaned back, unconsciously brushing his fingers along the armrest, closer to me than necessary. Our eyes met, and the air between us thickened, charged with a silent electricity. I wanted to lean closer, let my shoulder graze his, and see if he flinched, or if he welcomed it. I wanted to test the invisible boundary we kept tiptoeing around. Every small gesture became a game of temptation. His hand lingered too long near mine on the couch, his laughter held an edge that made me shiver, and my own smile became sharper, more daring. I caught myself imagining what it would feel like to push a little further, to see if he would resist, or surrender. The thought made my heartbeat thunder in my chest. We were playing a dangerous game without saying a word, each glance and subtle brush loaded with unspoken intent. Every moment of silence between us was a countdown, every playful tease a spark ready to ignite. I could feel the forbidden pull, that magnetic draw towards something neither of us was ready to admit, but both of us craved. And then it happened, a fleeting touch as he reached for his drink, fingers grazing mine in a way that lasted just a fraction too long. My stomach flipped. My breath caught. The tension was unbearable, the room suddenly too small for the weight of unspoken desire between us. I knew one wrong, or right, move could change everything. And deep down, I wanted it to. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every small sound feel louder, our breathing, the shuffle of feet across the wooden floor, the faint hum of the refrigerator. We had found ourselves alone, just the two of us, in a room that suddenly felt smaller, warmer, charged with the energy we had been dancing around for weeks. I perched on the edge of the couch, deliberately slow, letting my body tilt slightly toward him. He shifted in response, the motion almost imperceptible, but my pulse felt like it might burst. The subtle closeness was intoxicating, the brush of our knees, the shared warmth of the same space, the tiny accidental touches that were anything but accidental. Every glance from him carried a weight, a promise I couldn't name but felt deep in my chest. His eyes lingered on me longer than necessary, and I couldn't help the teasing lift of my lips. "Careful," I murmured, voice soft, "you might be reading too much into it." Yet even as I said it, my body betrayed me, leaning slightly closer, drawn to him by something magnetic and irresistible. A sudden noise outside, the creak of a floorboard in the hallway, made us both pause. Our proximity felt dangerous, intimate, like we were suspended on the edge of something thrilling and forbidden. The energy between us crackled, an unspoken acknowledgement that we had been inching closer and closer, and there was no turning back. I felt his hand brush mine as he adjusted his position on the couch, a deliberate, lingering touch that made my stomach twist with anticipation. My heart raced, my breaths coming faster, and I caught the way his pupils dilated ever so slightly, betraying his composure. For a moment, we existed in a bubble of charged silence, aware of every heartbeat, every involuntary shiver, every unspoken desire. And then, just as I thought I might finally break the boundary, he froze, eyes widening, a subtle but unmistakable reaction I could not ignore. My lips curved into a small, knowing smile. I shifted closer ever so slightly, pretending not to notice, letting the moment linger just a heartbeat longer than it should. The room seemed to hold its breath, every second stretching endlessly. And in that suspended moment, with tension thick enough to taste, one question hung in the air: would we finally cross the line, or pull back at the last second? The room felt impossibly small, the warm glow of the lamp wrapping around us like a cocoon. Every subtle shift, the tilt of his head, the way our knees brushed, the brush of his fingers along the couch cushion, sent my pulse racing. I had been teasing, testing boundaries, daring him to show what he really felt. But tonight, the tension was too thick to ignore. I leaned in slightly, just enough to close the space between us. His eyes widened, holding mine with an intensity that made my chest ache. Then he spoke, his voice low and unsteady. I shouldn't. I mean, I never thought I'd. He stopped, a strangled laugh escaping him. My curiosity spiked. Thought you'd what? I asked softly, a teasing smile tugging at my lips. His gaze flicked away, and then suddenly, he blurted, I've always wanted this, more than I should. My breath caught. The words were unexpected, raw, and unfiltered. My mind raced, torn between disbelief and exhilaration. All the playful teasing, all the stolen glances, the lingering touches, it all had a purpose. We weren't just flirting. We had been holding back truths neither of us dared say aloud. I swallowed hard, my heartbeat hammering. I wanted to pull away, but my body refused. Instead, I shifted closer, letting the weight of my presence press subtly against him. You don't have to hide it, I whispered. His eyes met mine again, a storm of relief, longing, and fear flickering in them. And then came the twist. The moment hung like a fragile glass ornament, ready to shatter. His phone buzzed sharply on the side table. Hesitating, he glanced at the screen, and I saw it, a message from someone else. My stomach twisted, a mix of betrayal and curiosity. My pulse surged, but the tension didn't break. Instead, it heightened, electrifying the air around us. I didn't mean for you to see that, he said, voice tight. His expression was a tangle of guilt and desire. I studied him, every micro-expression, every flicker of emotion. This was the moment everything changed, not with force, but with revelation. The stakes were higher than ever. Despite the shock, the pull between us was undeniable. I felt it in the heat of my pulse, the subtle tremor of my hand as I brushed lightly against his. It was risky, thrilling, intoxicating. We had crossed a line into a space where honesty, temptation, and danger mingled, and neither of us could turn back. The room seemed to hold its breath as our eyes locked again. Unspoken, raw, and charged, the atmosphere screamed one truth: this was only the beginning. Everything we thought we knew had shifted, and now, there was no telling what would happen next. The room felt heavy with unspoken truths, the aftermath of the confession and the unexpected message still lingering like a charged storm. We sat across from each other, the distance between us smaller than before, yet weighted with the gravity of our choices. Neither of us spoke at first, our breaths synchronized in the quiet, each heartbeat a reminder of what had just shifted. Finally, I broke the silence. We can't pretend this isn't real anymore, I said, my voice trembling slightly but firm. His eyes met mine, a mix of guilt, longing, and something raw that made my pulse race. He ran a hand through his hair, the tension visible in the set of his jaw. I know. I've been afraid, he admitted. Afraid of how much I want this, afraid of hurting you, or myself. The words hit me like a wave. I felt a swirl of emotions, anger, relief, excitement, but beneath it all, there was a deep, undeniable connection that neither of us could deny. The teasing, the flirting, the stolen moments, they had all led to this reckoning. And now, we were at the edge, forced to confront the truth. I leaned forward, my hand brushing his. The touch was deliberate but gentle, grounding both of us in the present. I don't want to hide anymore, I whispered. Not from you. Not from myself. The tension in the room shifted, electric but tender. Every nerve felt alive, every glance loaded with meaning. He exhaled, a long, shaky breath, and finally closed the gap between us slightly, though still careful. Then we take the risk, he said, his voice low, almost reverent. We figure this out, together. My heart swelled at the sincerity in his eyes. The storm of jealousy, temptation, and uncertainty had passed its peak, leaving behind clarity and choice. Yet the resolution wasn't simple. The glow of the lamp cast soft shadows across the room, illuminating the careful negotiation of space, the subtle hesitations in movement, the tentative reach for connection. We were not yet whole, but we had acknowledged the truth of our feelings, the desire that had pulled us closer despite the risks. In that quiet, charged moment, there was both relief and anticipation. Relief that the walls were down, and anticipation for what would come next. Our hands hovered, then intertwined slowly, a symbolic gesture of trust and daring. The emotional tension softened, replaced by warmth and the promise of intimacy, real, human, and deeply felt. As we leaned back, still close but savoring the new understanding between us, I knew that the story wasn't over. There was room for laughter, tenderness, and the romantic connection we had been denying ourselves for too long. And somewhere in that lingering, suspended energy, the audience could feel that the next chapter would be unforgettable. The quiet of the evening wrapped around us like a soft blanket, the tension of the past weeks melting away into a warmth that felt both comforting and electric. We sat together on the couch, knees brushing, fingers intertwined, finally unguarded. The playful teasing and the hidden glances that had defined our connection now felt like the opening chapters of something deeper, something real. He looked at me, eyes soft, no trace of hesitation this time. "I've wanted to do this for so long," he murmured, his hand gently cupping mine. I smiled, a mix of relief and delight, leaning slightly closer until our shoulders touched. The closeness no longer carried the risk it once had, it was simply a natural pull, a bond we had chosen to embrace. We laughed softly at some inside joke, the kind that only made sense to the two of us, the sound wrapping around us like a secret song. My head tilted, resting lightly on his shoulder, and I felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath me. It was grounding, reassuring, and intimate in a way that words could never capture. For the first time, the room didn't feel charged with uncertainty, it was charged with trust, affection, and the kind of quiet passion that comes from truly being seen. "You know," I whispered, "we're really doing this, aren't we?" His lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Yeah," he said softly. "No games. No pretending. Just us." The simplicity of the words struck me, the profound relief that we had crossed the hurdles of fear, misunderstanding, and hesitation. There was still a world outside, still life to navigate, but in that moment, it was just us, wrapped in each other's presence, savoring the delicate, unspoken joy of finally belonging. As we leaned back, still connected by hand and shoulder, I felt a soft contentment seep into my chest. This wasn't just a fleeting thrill or a playful tension, it was the beginning of something enduring. The moments we had spent teetering on the edge of desire had matured into warmth, into understanding, into the quiet certainty that we had chosen each other. And in that cozy, sun-dappled living room, hearts aligned and breaths slowing, I realized that some stories didn't need dramatic endings to be unforgettable. Sometimes, the beauty lay in the gentle affirmation of love, the small touches, the laughter, and the tender silence shared between two people who had finally let go of fear and embraced connection.